drive. Curry flip. Curry good!
This is Dubs OT with John Dickinson on KNBR 104.5 and 6.8. Streaming live at twitch.tv/thesportsleader.
So if you pick up the box score and you see 8 Warriors in double figures, still not enough. They're very good friends. You see them on Olympic coaching staffs, but the Heat end the Warriors' 8-game home winning streak. And they do it pretty convincingly. 114-102, the final.
Yeah, 114-102, but it wasn't that close. Heat led by as many as 22, and really, when you look at the box score, actually there isn't really anything that stands out as being much of a positive. Warriors lose 114-102. We welcome you into Dubs OT with JD, John Dickinson, here on KNBR, the sports leader. Appreciate everybody who's joining in on YouTube and Twitch as folks are filing in. Right off the top, just a gutless effort for the Golden State Warriors tonight. There's really no other way to categorize it. A gutless effort as the Miami Heat come into Chase Center and end the Warriors' 8-game home winning streak without Jimmy Butler, without Kyle Lowry, without Josh Richardson, without Caleb Martin. I mean, you're talking about 4 rotation players missing for the Miami Heat, and they put a thumping on the Warriors inside Chase tonight. So 808 KNBR is the number. If you're leaving Chase Center, you're in the area, heading home, following this one, want to hear from you, you can give me a call or shoot me a text. 808 KNBR is the number for both, as we'll keep this thing rolling here till about 11 o'clock on the Sports Leader. Ugly, ugly stuff for the Warriors. They came out flat, and it was the quintessential Miami Heat. Doesn't matter who's going to be on the floor. They're going to give you an honest, physical, hard-fought effort. And that was enough to basically put the Warriors in a position where they were fighting an uphill battle for a majority of the night. Ugly, ugly, ugly start. Warriors got down 15-6 and 17-9 early. Warriors were getting outworked. Steve Kerr went to the bench as the Warriors had started to cut into the lead, 17-13. The bench again got the Warriors back in the game to the point where the Warriors led 25-22 into the first quarter, and you're thinking, all right, well, that's a pretty good spot for the Warriors to be in, considering the very poor start that they got off to. And the Warriors would even extend it to 27-22 with an 18-5 run that bridged the first and second quarters. And then Steve Kerr gave the fans exactly what the fans wanted. Steve Kerr went to a lineup at the 10-minute mark of quarter number 2 that featured Chris Paul, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kuminga, and Dario Saric. So Wiggins and Kuminga playing together, which has been something that has not worked this season. I think it was a minus 21, if I remember correctly, with those two on the floor together. Now, folks were clamoring for it. I'm not sure why, coming off the game against Denver and the loss there, because Kuminga, I guess, had a really good third quarter after having a pretty terrible first half against the Nuggets, and Andrew Wiggins was the best player on the floor. Bottom line, the Warriors did not come out and play with any semblance of the energy or effort that they needed to compete against this Miami Heat team. But the game changed and basically was lost for good when Steve Kerr went to that lineup with Jonathan Kuminga and Andrew Wiggins playing together. So if Steve Kerr never plays those two together again, I would have zero problem with it. Point blank, end of story. Like, we can just forget about it, because he gave the people, and sometimes I think head coaches do this. Sometimes I do think head coaches, especially over a long haul of an NBA season or an MLB season, will do things to basically prove the point that they aren't a good idea. And I think you could make the case Steve Kerr may have done that tonight. Like, you know what? All right, I'll give it another look just to see. And Kuminga and Wiggins together, this via Tim Kawakami of The Athletic because he tracked it. I didn't specifically, although you knew it wasn't good. An immediate -7, an immediate 5 turnovers in 8 possessions. Jonathan Kuminga at one point in the game was 1 for 5 with 5 turnovers and 10 minutes. Coming on the heels of him telling Marcus Thompson of The Athletic that nobody can stop him and he should be getting more minutes. Not the best look for Jonathan Kuminga to talk all that mess about how great a player he is and then come out and lay a big fat egg. He was 2 of 6 with 6 turnovers. The Warriors had 9 turnovers at halftime, and Jonathan Kuminga had 6 of them. Awful. Worst player on the floor for the Warriors in the first half was Jonathan Kuminga. Heat went on a 20-4 run, flipped a 4-point deficit into a 12-point lead, and then Steve Kerr pulled not only Jonathan Kuminga but Klay Thompson due to ineffectiveness with the Heat up 13. He went to Moses Moody, and he went to Andrew Wiggins. And the Warriors went on a 9-0 run down the stretch to close the second quarter after they were down by 14 to pull to within 5 at that point. And wound up down 7 at the break as the Heat ended up scoring the final bucket, 58-51 at the half in the third quarter. And then the third quarter was more Miami, just outworking the Warriors, imposing their will against the Warriors. Warriors did cut down on the turnovers, but Miami was having their way in the paint. And the Heat did end up outscoring the Warriors 60-50 in the paint, and just a night where the Warriors didn't shoot the basketball well at all, and they needed to shoot the basketball at a high clip because they were getting outworked in basically every other facet of this one. So 808 KNBR is the number. I mean, I'm looking at the box score. We played the NBC Sports Bay Area Bob Fitzgerald call coming in here. And sure, you can say there were some players that had some decent games off the bench, but none of it impacted any semblance of a potential victory. Stephen Curry didn't have it tonight, 3 of 15. The Heat did a nice job against him. Klay Thompson, a game worst, along with Jonathan Kuminga, -26. He scores 13, 2 of 6 from 3. Warriors were 8 of 33 from 3. Now, Miami wasn't much better, 10 of 31, and they don't typically shoot the 3 ball all that well. But this was kind of the vintage Heat culture, first half, multiple rotation players out, competing hard, put their imprint on the game, forced the Warriors to raise their bar, and the Warriors just didn't have it. Warriors were not ready to compete against the Miami Heat, and I think they were hoping that offensive prowess would allow them to pull this game out, and it didn't work. 114-102, the final. 808 KNBR, the number here on Esports Leader. So the Warriors see their 8-game home winning streak come to an end. They've now lost 2 in a row, and they get this pivotal 7-game homestand that's going to bridge 2023 and 2024 off to just a horrendous start. Now with the Mavs coming in on Saturday and the Warriors taking on Orlando and Denver again, then it's going to be Detroit, who damn near got a win in Boston tonight, before Toronto and the Pelicans round it out. So opportunities to get some wins coming up for Golden State, but a really poor tone set for what this homestand could be for the Golden State Warriors, who I think had the quintessential letdown. They had the letdown that you can't have going up against an Eric Spoelstra coach team, because you know at the very minimum the Heat are going to compete their asses off. And they did that tonight, and the Warriors didn't match it, and you couldn't outshoot your mistakes. Warriors did clean up the turnovers in the second half, only 4 turnovers in the second half, but couldn't hit enough shots to even have it be a factor. Always appreciate everybody on the YouTube chat chiming in, a lot of the regulars here on Esports Leader. San Jose Jazz fan, no Butler, no Lowry, no problem. Yep. Nope. Couldn't get it done. Paul chiming in, CP3 is food on defense. More minutes for Moody. Yeah, tonight was one of the nights where Moses Moody played well in his 12 minutes, so everybody's going to scream that he needs to play more. Okay, that's fine. Play Moses Moody more, then you're probably playing Kuminga less. Enrique Rivera checking in. Curry looks burned out. Yeah, not a great look for Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson, really, after the ball game. Spotted on the bench, towel over his head. Klay Thompson staring into an abyss. Like, hey, what the hell's going on here? Like they were in utter disbelief that they played as poorly as they did. Regulator, Kuminga really turned the ball over 6 times in a quarter. Yes, he did. He was 1 for 5 for 5 turnovers and then 2 for 6 with 6 turnovers. After basically saying nobody can check him and he should be getting more minutes and basically finishing every game. He anointed himself in the Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green group. Not good. And the Warriors, Steve Kerr tried to warn everybody about this, by the way. He did try to warn everybody. This was a big topic of discussion coming off the Denver game. Well, so let's go ahead and roll that, Greg. I do want to play the question, I believe it was Tim Kawakami, yesterday at practice. This was yesterday at Warriors practice after everybody was in a stew for basically 2 days over trying to find a way that Kuminga, because Wiggins played so great, but they have to be on the floor together. They have to be on the floor together because everybody's ready to anoint Jonathan Kuminga, something that he frankly isn't ready to be. Nobody can just sit and chill and allow Jonathan Kuminga to contribute as a role player, which he had been doing. Everybody wants to now bump him up and anoint him the next savior for this franchise. How about you just let the kid play and let the kid be successful and grow into things naturally? The problem is Kuminga doesn't want to wait and grow into things naturally. He wants it all right now. Bad tone. Mark and Milbrae, I'm coming to you here in just a second, but I do want to play this from Steve Kerr yesterday, asked by Tim Kawakami.
Can you play Kuminga and Wiggins together more, or is that just the equation? It doesn't work with those two on the floor together.
I think it's something we will try with maybe some new people around them. Their numbers are not good together, frankly. They're very redundant. So the tape and the numbers haven't been great. But we recognize, too, that we have a level that we need to get to really compete at the highest level. And if those two guys can coexist on the floor, it does give us an elevated athleticism and elevated potential. But we have to find the right combination of people around those two.
And Steve Kerr tried to find a different combination around those two, and we laid it out here at the top of the program. It was Chris Paul, Klay Thompson, Wiggins, with Kuminga and Saric. So you basically had a playmaker in Chris Paul, you had 2 shooters in Saric and Klay Thompson, and then you had Wiggins and Kuminga out there together, and it basically flipped the game. That was the point at which the game began to get out of hand to where the Warriors couldn't corral it. Amar Singh, Kerr gave the Fanatics every lineup they wanted, LOL. He did. And again, he said the tape and the numbers show that it's bad, while acknowledging the fact that it could be good. It could be good if they can figure it out, but there is a redundancy. I mean, Kuminga wants to shoot the ball every single time he gets it. And Andrew Wiggins is somebody who tends to float. And it just doesn't work with the balance of the rest of the players that the Warriors have on the roster. Now, the Warriors did get back in the game third quarter, cut it down to 2, and then a 20-8 run to close the quarter for Miami. They end up outscoring the Warriors 33-25 in the frame, and then it really was never close in the fourth quarter. as the Warriors were down 95-76 with 11 minutes to go. It went all the way to 102-80 Miami, and then they cruised from there, 114-102. The bench guys at the very end were able to knock a few points off, but that was cosmetic. The Warriors got blown out in this one, 114-102. So 808 KNBR is the number. 808 KNBR. We'll get to the YouTube chat. A lot of people popping up on YouTube. Appreciate everybody there here on a Thursday night in the holiday season as the Warriors see their record fall back under 500 at 15-16. Mark and Millbrae, you're up first here on the phone lines on the Sports Leader. Hey, Mark, what's going on tonight, brother?
What's up, man? Yeah, terrible effort tonight across the board. I'm not going to single any one guy out. I think the Warriors just got annihilated tonight, and we know Miami's a really good team, and Bolster is one of the best coaches in the league. But regardless, this is a game you should be prepared for because you know what you're going to be in because they are Miami is one of the best coached and performing teams. Like tonight, they had this guy Jamal Cain. When I was at the game, I never even heard of this guy. Comes off the bench, giving them 20 points,
career high.
We know
career high for Jamal Cain, 18 points.
I don't know how the Heat continually do this. They find these random guys nobody hears of, and develop them to become good players like Jovic. And we know a hero is a damn good player. And really for them, the Heat to dominate like they did tonight without Jimmy Butler, that's all on the Warriors, especially coming off the loss on Christmas Day. I know they're still salty and bitter about the call down the stretch, but you played the defending champs right down to the wire. And to have a couple of nights off and begin your homestand against a team you know you're going to be locked in for, absolutely no show. Nobody really played that well tonight. I think everybody owned it. The three-point shooting was completely dreadful. So all in all, I'm not going to single any one guy. I just think even Curry probably his worst game of the season. So when you formulate all that, you're going to get your head kicked in by a team like Miami. So hopefully the Warriors are going to wear this one tonight, and you got another tough matchup against Dallas. They better be up for it, man, because we know this Warriors team, they have no room for error. If even a couple guys off, if Curry's not carrying the team, having his usual dominant game, they really got no shot against anybody, especially against good teams like Miami and even Dallas coming up here. So hopefully they'll wear it back in, and this is a one-off because they've been playing so well as of late, and even in that loss to Denver. But this was a stinker, and hopefully we don't get to another one for a while going forward. And we'll take your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, look, it is on everybody, and I don't want to be singling out Kuminga specifically because Klay Thompson, you could make the case, was just as bad tonight, and Steph Curry didn't have a good game, 3 for 15 and 2 of 8 from 3, 13 points. He was a minus 14. No, it's on everybody. I mean, it was I think on the surface, it was a gutless effort. I always kind of go baseball with Bruce Bochy, who would always say, when you don't hit, you look flat. And I think the Warriors in this game, when you don't make threes and you don't make shots, you look flat. And so I think part of it was the fact that the Warriors weren't hitting. And when you're not hitting, you look low energy. And so I think you can factor that in. But you know, regardless of who's on the freaking court for the Miami Heat, that they are going to compete at a extremely high level. And so for the Warriors to not match that competitiveness is a joke. That competitiveness being matched could have allowed the Warriors to hang in this game, and maybe you get hot down the stretch and you ultimately win it. But they didn't have it. And, yeah, it was pretty much on everybody. I don't know who played well. I mean, Wiggins was okay. Trace Jackson-Davis was solid. I don't think Podziemski was that bad. But, you know, tonight was not a night where Chris Paul and Dario Saric played well. Tonight was not a night where Steph and Klay played well. And that's the reality. The Warriors can't win when Steph and Klay both don't play well. And tonight's a pretty scary indicator of that because it's a Heat team that basically was out 4 rotation players. 4 rotation players. 808 KNBR, the number. It's Dubs OT with JD here on Esports Leader. San Jose Jazz fan the third. JD said gutless. Do a shot. Is there an official Dubs OT with JD drinking game. I think San Jose Jazz fan wants to be able to start that one. You're not going to be in a good way. I hope. I'm going to say you're not going to be in a good way between now and 11 o'clock if you're counting on having one every time I say that, because I'm going to say it a few more times between now and 11 o'clock. That's about as ugly a loss as I think the Warriors have had this season, considering the circumstances, considering it's a game that they need. So a bad look all around, a bad look from a competitive standpoint. I'm not willing to say, well, it's a night where they just didn't have it. Like, I'm not willing to go there for the Warriors. Now, if Miami had all their guys and you lay that game out there and you lose, okay, I think maybe we're having a different conversation. But then the other element of this is there was so much talk about Kuminga, far too much discussion than needed to be had about Jonathan Kuminga over the course of the last 3 days. And then he goes out and is the worst player on the floor after basically, we've had a few people allude to it as taking the bait from a reporter looking to have a story. And look, it's no slight on Marcus Thompson. I mean, he asked the question. It's a fair question. He knows Kuminga moves the needle, and he also knows Kuminga's willing to speak to it. But when you do that and then you're the worst player on the floor, brutal. Absolutely brutal. And look, Steve Kerr gave everybody what they wanted, and it didn't work. And if he never did it again, I wouldn't blame him. So if there is one win, if there's one win for the Warriors tonight, Steve Kerr now knows that he can just completely go away from those two playing together for the rest of this season. And the bottom line is, and look, I've said this, if Kuminga's not playing well and Wiggins is, you don't need both of them on the court. You go with Wiggins, who helped you win a championship when he's playing at that level. It really is not rocket science. I know everybody's fawning over the young players. And look, in some cases, rightfully so. They've helped this team. But there's a difference between them helping this team as role players and believing that they need to be completely given the keys to the future of this franchise. And by future, I mean right freaking now. And I think the big problem that the Warriors have is, again, as time goes on, they have so many similar players. So many similar players that on a night-in, night-out basis, they can't figure out who the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh best players are. The reason they've been winning was because, for the most part, Steve Kerr had settled on 9, and those 9 had an opportunity to gel and come together and play better. 808 KNBR is the number. It's John Dickinson, Dubs OT with JD here on Esports Leader. Warriors thumped 114-102. And yeah, I'm going to say it again, San Jose Jazz fan the third. Gutless Warriors effort. That might need to be a 3-for-1 or a 1-for-3 or something like that. We're going to count that as 1. Well, it's Thursday, but nobody's really working this week. The great Greg Silver chimed in, it's only Thursday. We can't. Actually, this is the one week of the year where it's like nobody knows what day it is, and everybody's walking around in sweatpants. And like, you get to Christmas. I think really you get to Christmas Eve, and you lose all semblance of what day is what until the first Monday, basically, after New Year's. Like, everybody just forget, oh, okay. Like, this year it's the 8th, right? This year it's the 8th. And so January 8th is like the next normal day for everybody. DVDV, the YouTube chat, JD is asking us to make more shots than Steph did. LMAO. I am not asking anybody to do anything. Not asking anybody to do anything. But yes, we are keeping it 100% real here on the Sports Leader. That's how I roll. I'm not going to have it any other way. Tonight's one of those losses that just, I can't stand it, where teams just show up thinking that they can roll the balls out and win, and you can't do it. Can't do it. Can't do it against the Heat. Like, the Warriors should have known better against the Heat. They should have known that the Heat were probably one of the few teams that could be without four guys and still come in and compete their tails off enough to earn a win. All right, we're going to hear from Steve Kerr. I'm also really interested to see who came to the podium tonight in the Bill King interview room at Chase Center, because who came to the podium tonight, I think, is telling. Tonight needs to be a night where the heavy hitters come out. I want Steph Curry and Klay Thompson to be accountable for this game tonight. I want Jonathan Kuminga to be accountable for this game tonight after he ran his mouth in Denver on Monday about how nobody could stop him and he's ready to cook. And sometimes he's got to take his foot off the gas to get the OGs their shots, which prevents him from cooking at the level that he thinks he should be. Okay, JK, let's come to the podium tonight and be asked about those questions. 808 KNBR. If you're leaving Chase, love to hear from you. YouTube chat on fire. Sounds of Silver coming up. Ugly, ugly Warriors loss, 114-102. It's KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
This sucks.
This is KNBR, and this is Dubs OT with John Dickinson. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
Did you hear something?
Yeah, like a swoosh.
Yeah.
Dubs OT presents the sounds of silver. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
All right, welcome back. Dubs OT with JD here on the Esports Leader. Heat 114, Warriors 102, 808 KNBR, the number. Time for the sounds of silver. And as we get into this, we bring in the great Greg Silver. But, Greg, I got to ask you first and foremost, who has spoken at the podium inside Chase Center so far tonight?
Yeah, well, what's going on? This was a bit of a rough one, but we have a lot of the same guys doing the early podium work lately at Chase Center. Steve Kerr was out pretty early. In fact, right before we went live. Then we've had Trace Jackson-Davis and Brandon Pajemski since. I imagine we'll get Steph Curry a little bit later, and that's all so far.
Yeah, tonight is a night, and I'm going to reiterate what I said before the break. Tonight's a night where Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, and I think Jonathan Kuminga, to be perfectly honest, after the comments that he made to Marcus Thompson on Monday, should be at the podium to speak to this performance. Not Brandon Pajemski and Trace Jackson-Davis. And I get it. Teams tend to want to put the players that play well up on the podium. And Pajemski, as a young guy, is, I think, as thoughtful and introspective as any young player that I've heard come through the league in recent memory. So it's not that they can't do it. It's that they shouldn't have to do it on a night where basically you had your most gutless loss of the entire season at home against a Heat team down 4 rotation players. So I would bet Steph Curry tends to run a little late after the ball game based on his post-game treatment plan and all of that. So I'm not ruling out Steph. Klay, I'm sure, is a no-show tonight. He probably said deuces. And then, yeah, Kuminga wants none of the smoke. Maybe somebody will get Kuminga in the locker room to see if he doubles down. But no, that should be tonight's a night where Steph and Klay should be right at the podium being accountable. Steph, you had a towel over your head at the end of the game. Klay, you were staring off into oblivion. Like, what's going through your mind at that point? How does this happen? Steph, what did you think of Jonathan Kuminga telling everybody that he can cook anybody in the league, but sometimes has to pump the brakes?
And sorry to chime in, JD, but that little chime we got is because we have a Klay Thompson showing at the podium right now. How about that?
I'll own that. Now, I'll own that. My bad, Klay. My bad, Klay. Hat tip to Klay Thompson for coming out. I'll owe Klay a apology on that one because I didn't think he'd be there tonight. Hat tip to Klay Thompson. That's what a professional does. That's what a professional does. If you want to put the young players out there, that's fine. But the veterans have to be accountable, especially when the veterans don't play well. And the worst plus-minus players on the court tonight were Steph and Klay and Jonathan Kuminga. So, all right, I'm gonna own that one right here. Klay,
no gutless shot for Klay Thompson tonight.
You're not gutless for coming out and owning the performance and meeting with the media. All right, let's get to the sounds of silver here on the Sports Leader. What do we got tonight, Greg?
Well, we're going to have a couple of cuts that are pretty blunt. We'll start with the head coach like we usually do. Steve Kerr was pretty blunt with it. He said the Heat controlled the entire game. They were outplayed and outcoached. I don't think I need a further explanation. Let's get right into it.
I thought that run, beginning of the second quarter, I think we were up 6 or something, 5, and they made a really good run and had control of the game from there. So one of those nights, we've been, in every game, seems like all year, every game's been close. We've been competitive and tough, and tonight we kind of lost that competitiveness, and just it felt like we got demoralized. Shots weren't going in, and they just took it to us. It's we know what's coming when 3 or 4 guys are out of the lineup. This is a common theme in the NBA, and especially when you play Miami, because you know they're going to be tough and they're not going to give anything away. And you look at the box score; they had 7 turnovers, 26 assists. They controlled the game, so we got outcoached, outworked, outplayed.
Yeah, pretty simple. Steve Kerr all over it there. How do you prevent it from happening again, though? I think is the key question. And the Warriors just continue to find themselves really the mark of a 500 team. And I know Steve Kerr went in during his pregame press conference again. He was asked, do you think you feel good about being 500, basically going in, considering Draymond's suspension and injuries and different things? And Kerr said, no, we should have won 3 or 4 more games than we did. And there's basically, he had 4 games that he felt the Warriors should have won that they've let slip away, and basically 1 or 2 that went the other way as far as maybe they shouldn't have won, but they did. And so he feels like they should be at least 2 or 3 games better minimum based on that, and they aren't. And I think he's right. But losing games like tonight, this team just continues to show that they are a 500 team, that they aren't better than that they are pretty much similar to last year's team. Only last year's team didn't have Steph Curry for 26 freaking games. This team's not had Steph Curry for 2 games, basically. Is that right? 2 games? So, but you're a 500 team, and you're talking about how much better your bench is, which I think it has been. So something's amiss. Because I think that the other rat on the table, the pieces don't fit together as well as been advertised. They just don't. Like, they have this depth, but it's just inconsistent, and it's, a couple of guys will play pretty well for 3 or 4 games, and then they don't play well, and then you want to have another guy get run. But it's all contingent on Steph and Klay doing their thing, and that's what really happened during the 5-game winning streak, is Steph and Klay both played at an extremely high level. All right, Greg, let's continue.
Well, we got Brandon Podziemski, one of the usual early podium guys there at Chase, and Podziemski, probably the brightest spot of the team aside from Steph Curry, but Podziemski is the pleasant surprise of the 2023-24 season, and he owned up to it, saying that he thinks the loss falls partly on his plate because of not bringing the energy, which he knows is one of his strengths along with that younger group. So let's hear from Brandon talking about his responsibility according to his view.
Yeah, I think it's, a lot falls on my plate. I'm the guy that's supposed to bring the energy and hustle plays and effort plays, and I didn't do that tonight. I can usually gauge that by, how many steals, deflections, rebounds I get, and tonight was probably my worst performance of the year in that case. So I think it starts with me. Coach can say that it's his fault, he didn't get us prepared and whatnot, but I'm in that starting group for that reason, and I just don't think I bring that energy and effort tonight like I usually do.
Appreciate a young player owning it like that. Although, again, I don't think he necessarily should be the one that has to own it. And Podziemski wasn't awful tonight. But, again, I do think the one thing that Podziemski stands out on a lot of nights for his hustle and his energy. It doesn't quite stand out as much against a Heat team that brings that with everybody up and down their roster. There's nights where Kuminga, his athleticism really is on blast, and it pops, and you see it because it's in particular against other younger players in the league and other young teams. Like, Kuminga typically has his best games against like opponents. If you're really paying attention, it's a lot of the bad young teams in the league is where he plays his best. It's Portland. It's teams like that can't check him. So what I think is part of but when you're playing against Miami, everybody on the Miami team brings that level of intensity, even if you don't have that level of athleticism. So it doesn't quite stand out nearly as much. All right, Greg, let's continue here. Sounds of Silver. It's Dubs OT with JD here on KNBR, the sports leader.
Yeah, well, we actually just got a Klay sound rolled in that I haven't even heard, but the great Raph is doing such good work back there in the bullpen, getting some Klay Thompson sound. So He talked about the offense and it being a little bit stagnant. It's going to be an instant reaction for all of us. Here is number 11.
What do you think happened in that second quarter that kind of turned this game?
In the second quarter, I think maybe our offense got a little too stagnant and our resistance at the rim was lacking. And those two things combined together is not good. And they played good defense, so just not the best night for the team.
Not the best night, no doubt. And again, you get bit when you don't bring the full-throated intensity against a team like Miami. But hat tip to Klay Thompson. I almost didn't care what Klay Thompson said, to be perfectly honest. It was just the fact that he came out and said it. I think that's admirable on a night where there isn't a whole lot admirable about the Warriors' performance as they fall to the shorthanded Heat 114-102. Let's go back to the YouTube chat a little bit here. Amar Singh, Kuminga's defense may have been worse than his offense. Yeah, Kuminga is not a good team defender. He is a pretty good on-ball defender when the Warriors give him a very simplified assignment. Not good. Not good. Enrique Rivera, another 0 from 3 for Andrew Wiggins. Yeah, Wiggins, really the tale of how effective he is typically, does he make threes or not? And he didn't make any threes tonight, and he wasn't quite as effective. Although, again, he was part of the bench group that still played pretty well top to bottom in this one, but not nearly the impact that he had, or that the benches had in other games. Hello there on the YouTube chat. That's the screen name. So much for Kuminga saying he's a badass dude. Should keep his mouth shut till he shows consistency. He had been showing consistency, which I think is part of disappointment. Got to make a trade. Alpha Nickelberry checking in here on the YouTube chat. I think that leads down the path to what could be coming for the Warriors is they're going to have to figure out the glut, basically. And to me, it's not even the glut. It's that the pieces don't consistently fit together. Like, they talk about all this depth and how they love this team compared to last year. And some nights you see it, but you don't see it consistently enough. So you need to pick who your keepers are, and you need to also make the determination, do you want to go young or do you want to go more veteran? I think that's another part of the equation as the Warriors start to sort through this in the coming weeks. It's the fact that, I like the fact that, I like Podziemski. I like Trace Jackson-Davis. I like Moses Moody. I like Jonathan Kuminga in a vacuum. Like, I like them as players. I all think they provide things that can help this Warriors team. But you can't play them all every single night, significant minutes with the way this team is built. And I'm not sure that they're a standalone future playoff core on their own anyway. It's too early to know for sure, but I'd lean that they probably aren't. And their timeline is not going to be in line with Steph Curry, where any of those players are basically number 2 options or even number 3 options aligned with Steph Curry. So you got to decide, is this team good enough to salvage? Do you believe in Steph and Klay and Draymond enough to where you start to look at the glut and you start picking between Podziemski and Trace Jackson-Davis, who I think both of those guys at this point are keepers? I think Moody's a playoff keeper. He's been a better playoff player. Like, I would keep Moses Moody around just to potentially throw him in a playoff series. So the question we're really talking about here is it's really Kuminga and Wiggins. And I'll tell you another thing about Kuminga and the comments that he made on Monday. He's got a high opinion of himself as a player. He's also someone that's going to be due an extension coming up in the fall. And I think that factors in. Like, you're not trading Andrew Wiggins to make Jonathan Kuminga your starting 3. Like they don't view him as a 3. So it's not. So you got to have a starting 3 if you're going to get rid of Wiggins. Like, and you just signed Wiggins to a more team-friendly contract. Bottom line, he's got to play better. But and I think the Warriors have to do this calculus on Kuminga. As well as he's played, is he going to be comfortable continuing to be a role player? Because I don't see the Warriors giving him a shot to cook and be a number 2 option this year. They just don't view him that way. 2 years from now, maybe. We'll see. I don't know. But that isn't where it is right now. And I still think, and I think the comments on Monday show it, that he should be happy with the way that he's played and the impact he's had on games and helping this team win. But yet he's not. He wants to be doing more. He wants to be a bigger part of things. So I think the Warriors have to be able to determine whether they're going to wait around for him or whether they're going to move on from him. And I think they would love for him to be the player that he's been these last 10, 12 games. But if he isn't going to be content with that role this season, then I think he's probably got to go because he isn't going to be great enough, quick enough to run him out there with the rest of this core. But I agree that something has to be done in the coming weeks. The Warriors are going to have to figure out exactly what they want to do. 808 KNBR is the number. It's Dubs OT with JD here on The Sports Leader. Let's go to Joey in Pittsburgh on the phone lines before we get back to the YouTube chat and people chiming in. It is a lively YouTube stream tonight. What's going on, Joey?
Hey, how you doing, JD?
Good.
Yeah, it's a tough season to watch. There's so many things wrong. They're not the defensive team they were when they were winning championships. That is really faltered. But man, I love Klay Thompson, but I think he's killing us. He's just a different dude since he's come back. He's sensitive, putting up the 4 rings. He wasn't like that, and I really think he's forcing his offense. Even when he was great, I think the way teams would plan for him, they say, make Klay Thompson put the ball on the floor. And he seems to be doing it more than ever, and he's slower, and I just think he's really hurting him. It pains me to say that because I think we wouldn't have won championships without him, but it's almost like the Giants, man. They got to move on from some of these older dudes that are just, not who they were.
Thanks for the call.
Wiggins is in there too, by the way.
Yeah, no, I mean, Wiggins hasn't been the same player that he was in 2022. Thanks, Joey. Appreciate it. Klay Thompson has been up and down. I mean, for 6-7 games in a row, he looked like the old Klay. But the one thing we know from watching him last year and this year is there's going to be 4 or 5 games where he's not going to be. And the nights where Klay Thompson doesn't hit shots, this Warriors team really struggles to win. And if you couple that with Stephen Curry not making shots as well, and Regulator in the YouTube chat, I'm going to credit them because 7-26. 4-14 from 3 starts there. Splash Brothers 7-26. This Warriors team isn't good enough to beat anybody if those two are going to play at that level, regardless of how good they say their bench is. Tough. Tough stuff. San Jose Jazz fan the third. JD blaming the fans? I'm not blaming the fans. But I do think the fans have an inflated opinion of Jonathan Kuminga specifically. I think they have an inflated opinion of all of the young players, to be perfectly honest. But, Kevon Looney's another one. Looking at Coop on the YouTube chat. Kevon Looney, Kevon Looney, Wiggins, and Kuminga. Would the Warriors move off of Looney because he hasn't quite been as effective as he has been? Plus they're going to have to get their financial house in order. So, I mean, I think we're seeing, and again, you don't want to overreact to one game. And San Jose Jazz fan, who the heck was saying play Kuminga with Wiggins? That was the chatter after the game. That was the whole tenor of Marcus Thompson's piece in The Athletic, where he got Kuminga to basically say he's still being underutilized and wants to be finishing games and wants to be playing more. The whole premise was because Steve Kerr didn't play Kuminga down the stretch in Denver because Andrew Wiggins was the best player on the team that day. And folks have been clamoring for, well, play them both. Because nobody in the Bay Area seemingly will ever admit that Jonathan Kuminga has a bad half or a bad game. I mean, Tim Kawakami wrote a complete article. He wrote an article about it. He's in the press conference asking it. This has been a topic for the last 3 days. And I agree. Again, I referenced it earlier. Amar Singh, Kerr gave the Fanatics the lineup they wanted. How did it work out? Trace Jackson Davis, Kuminga, heavy dose of Wiggins and Kuminga together. Night. In a bad way for the Warriors. Yeah, Karadvo. All the bandwagon fans saying play Wiggins and JK together. So, yeah, there are two specific people for San Jose Jazz fan. Yeah, there's no doubt this team can't win with those two playing. Enrique Rivera, at least we're not the Pistons. Tonight was a night that showed the Warriors do need Draymond Green, because that's another one the streets are starting to talk about. Oh, they better without Draymond. Would they look at moving to Draymond? Yeah, they need Draymond back. And Curry, as he was staring at nothing with the towel over his face. Karadvo, Curry wishing for 23 and 0. Draymond Green and Gary Payton II back ASAP. 100%. YK on the YouTube chat, Kuminga's attitude will be the reason he won't be a star. It's interesting because I don't get the impression Kuminga has a bad attitude. He's pretty soft-spoken and mellow, but there was another person in the chat that said he'll take the bait every time. He does have a really high opinion of himself, and I think he's surrounded by people that basically are telling him he's got to get the hell up out of here to go cook and get paid and have a bigger role, basically, in the league. Karrason, I think we've got a logjam at small forward and will be the reason we flip Kuminga at the deadline. Kuminga doesn't even play small forward. Klay Thompson's been playing more small forward than Kuminga. I mean, basically it's Wiggins and Moody and Klay that have been playing the three. But yeah, Curry, again, he's got to be wondering what the hell, because it just in the moment where it looks like it's starting to flip, now it's going back the other way. Trick Vic, JK young and his ego is too big. Absolutely. All right, 808 KNBR, we are going to keep this thing going beyond 11 because the people are hot. And we appreciate everybody who's watching on YouTube and Twitch. Jonathan, we'll get to you coming up on the phone lines. Short timeout. It's Dubs OT with JD on 104.5 and 680 The Sports Leader.
Live from downtown.
Hurry, way downtown. Bang! Bang!
This is Dubs OT with John Dickinson on the Sports Leader. Streaming live at KNBR.com and on the KNBR app.
Pajemski just came in here and kind of blamed himself for the loss.
Jeez. Dramatic rookie.
Basically, that he didn't bring the energy, and he's supposed to be kind of the energy guy. Beyond just him, did it just feel like that the energy collectively wasn't there?
Yeah, it wasn't great tonight, and I don't know. I don't have a great answer for you. Can't blame BP. It's hard to bring the energy he does 82 nights a year, but he does it to the best of his ability. Not the best performance tonight from anybody.
That's a fact. Klay Thompson post-game, and again, hats off to Klay for stepping up. I think that's a perfect answer on Pajemski. Like, Pajemski should feel zero kind of way about his impact on this game or lack of impact on this game as the Dubs get thumped by the Heat, 114-102 over at Chase. It's Dubs OT with JD here on KNBR, the sports leader. Let's get to the phones, 808 KNBR. Jonathan is next here on Dubs OT. Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, JD. Nice to follow you over to KNBR. I said I was at the Celtics game, and I said the fact that they won that game by the skin of their teeth, and I watched all those turnovers, all that failure to box out, and I said if they keep playing like that, they're not going to survive Denver, and they may very well not survive Miami. And lo and behold, on a night that the Heat didn't have Jimmy Butler, Caleb Martin, and Kyle Lowry, Heat culture brought it, as they always do. And I know Dub Nation doesn't want to hear this, but for what I've been waiting for 3 years since they last won before COVID in 2020, this was a long time coming, and I couldn't be more thrilled. It goes to what I said. The Warriors are better, but they still have problems, and they're not communicating well. They're making a lot of mistakes, and they added up. And I knew, despite everybody not giving us a chance, I knew if the Warriors kept making those mistakes and Miami played their game, we'd have a chance. And we hung in there the entire game and pretty much dominated after that rough first quarter and never looked back. And I'm as shocked as Warriors fans are. Only the opposite emotion, but it should be interesting as the schedule progresses, because I'll put my Warriors gear back on Saturday night, and they have some things to fix. That's for sure, because the fact that we pulled this off, I give the Heat a lot of credit, but also the Warriors really led us in this game in so many ways. And
thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate it. I'm gonna jump in there. Good call. 808 KNBR, the number. It's Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. Look, you can't lose games to anybody if you're going to be the team that the Warriors believe they are, that is missing 4 rotation players. Basically, 4 of their top 7 weren't playing tonight, and the Warriors were down by 22 in the fourth quarter and got outworked really the whole night. Like, if this team had played really well to get back to 500 and even get to a game over 500, you don't win the Denver game, that's no big deal. But you can't come in and not have it against a Miami team that's down 4 of their top 6 or 7. That's just unacceptable on so many levels. And it feels like no matter what the Warriors do, they just can't sustain success for anything longer than 4, 5, 6 games at a time without having to go into some kind of a funk that puts them right back in a position where they need another little hot spell to get at or slightly above 500. It's basically what this team has been not only this year, but last year. This year's Warriors team right now, to me, feels like a different version of the same Warriors team we saw last year. Maybe a little better, maybe a little worse. Better in certain areas, worse in other areas. But same level. Fighting to stay in the top 10 right now to where they can hope to get into the top 6 in April. And then you see what you got. Back to the YouTube chat before we do some fun with numbers and call it a night, because I'm going to be back filling in for Murph and Marcus with Guy Haberman tomorrow, bright and early, 6 a.m. here on the Sports Leader. Couple of Trick Vic. Kuminga was a problem last year when he pouted with Jordan Poole. Yep. That's exactly right. And it's unfortunate. And I know the Warriors have tried to put their best foot forward on Kuminga. Steve Kerr said, hey, I like the comments. No big deal. He thinks he's a good player. Confidence is a good thing. But when you go out and you play that poorly, and I think Kerr gave him every opportunity. He didn't embarrass him by putting him in at the end of the game tonight. I thought he could have. I think if you really wanted to send a message, you could have put Kuminga out there in the final 5 minutes tonight down by 20 and said, all right, kid, you're in the closing lineup tonight. He didn't do that. He didn't embarrass him, which I think is commendable. Didn't deserve it to become personal. But I think the other reason the Warriors are trying to not do that is because they want his value to remain high. They want to act like they love him, even though they know behind closed doors that he's not content. I think Kuminga, to me, isn't content being the player that the Warriors are perfectly happy for him to be this season. And that's the new wrinkle in this thing that comes out of what happened on Monday that I think is problematic. And look, we spent a lot of time on Kuminga. He was one part of an all systems fail tonight. I want to make sure I'm making that point. And it starts with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, who didn't have it either. Couple of more here. Uncle Looney, one of my faves. People were like, no, Dre, look at the joy. Look at the joy. Couple of other ones here before we call it a night. Kerr has his faults. This from Douglas Mikes, but this game wasn't his fault. Yeah, look, when you're the head coach, you got to come out and own it. But tonight was a night where I really don't necessarily put it on Kerr, but Kerr has to, I think, anticipate that they might be a little bit flat, or that if they are a little bit flat, they can get burned. So I'm not totally absolving Kerr for tonight either. Like, you got to know when you're going against Spo and you're going against Miami that they're going to at least play their ass off, and you're going to have to match them from a competitiveness level. So I think you almost have to be, in the front of your mind, if you're Steve Kerr, you don't let on, but in the front of your mind, if you're Steve Kerr tonight, you almost have to be anticipating the worst case scenario. Flat, turn and be ready to go a different direction to try and get a spark. The problem is a lot of the guys who've been providing the spark of late were the players who didn't have it in this one tonight. DVDV. I disagree. This is not a blowout. This is a blowout. Tonight was a freaking blowout. They were down by 22. I don't give a rip if Jerome Robinson and Lester Quinones and Moses Moody helped get it from 22 down to 12. The Warriors got blown out. It was a 12-point game that didn't sniff being a 12-point game. Blowout. Period. They got blown out. Formal margin doesn't equate. Like, that's a fair point. But this game was not as close as the final score indicated. Rockin' New Era 84, this roster, not going to get far. That's the other part of it. What's the ceiling for this roster? Get into the playoffs as a bottom 4 seed, 5 through 8, and win a round against somebody like they did last year and then go out? I feel like that's the ceiling right now. I feel like the ceiling is sneak into the playoffs, beat somebody, have it all take its toll, and you wind up going home. Tough. Tough stuff for the Golden State Warriors, and they got to get it right because they got to win at home. Dallas is coming in. Orlando's coming in. Denver's coming in. These are all teams that can beat the Warriors. Detroit. Cameraman Fern, drink a 6-pack at Harmonic. I don't know about that. That is a nice little spot, though. Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City. Good little spot. Been there often. Hope to be there again soon. All right, final couple here as I go through the YouTube chat. Appreciate everybody chiming in here on the Sports Leader. I like JD on here. He's much more objective here. Look, I'm always objective. I'm always objective, and there's never any mandate from anywhere else about what can or can't be said. Always objective. But yeah, the Warriors have some things to clean up, and we'll see if they can do it. And no, I hope nobody's doing tequila shots. JP from the Yoon. We're talking about taking tequila shots when JD says, gutless. Yeah, no, I hope everybody's being safe out there. And but the folks are having a lot of fun with that tonight. Rockin' New Era 84. This one made me chuckle. Kuminga burnt all the food trying to cook tonight. Pretty funny. Outcoached, played with no discipline, lack of effort, no heart. Matthew James chiming in. Love my Warriors, but horrible performance from most of the team. Yeah, I mean, again, top to bottom. Top to bottom, rough one, and it's not really going to get much easier with Luka coming in. Hello there, JD, what's your gut feeling? Trade this, trade who? I think they're going to look to trade Kuminga. I think he's the guy they'd look to trade. I think they'd look at Wiggins. I think they may have to look at Looney, although Looney is a trusted playoff player. And maybe the option with Looney is just you're going to play him a little better or play him a little less. Try and keep him healthier, ready for a run. But it just, I think this is all leading towards some kind of a trade that smooths out the top 10 or 12 to where basically Steve Kerr knows that he's got 9 that he's going to play every night if they're healthy, maybe 10, and then the other 2 are ready when called upon, but also content with maybe not getting run. But I think the one thing that we know right now, in the short term, I really wouldn't do anything until Draymond's back. I mean, I wouldn't make a lineup change or anything going into Saturday. I'd keep Podziemski out there, I'd keep Kuminga out there, I'd keep Steph and Clay and Looney out there. The bench, for the most part's played well with a lot of different combinations. So I would just kind of keep things rolling and see how this thing goes. But Steve Kerr can't get complacent or content with who he's got, penciled in on a night where things don't look like they're going well. All right, let's get some fun with numbers here before we wrap it up. Gutless.
This is Dubs OT with JD. Time now for fun.
I'm a fun guy.
With numbers.
No, I'm just having fun.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live on KNBR.com and the KNBR app.
Yeah, few tonight, not many. Warriors home streak ends at 8 games. Warriors hadn't lost since November the 18th against Oklahoma City. That was the Chet Holmgren bungled foul, or no foul. Holmgren hit the corner three. Game went to overtime. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander put the Warriors to bed. Warriors had won 8 in a row. The Heat hadn't won here in the Bay the last 3 times, so Miami gets that win. 102 points for the Warriors tonight, tied for the second fewest that they've scored this season. Warriors scored 101 against Minnesota on the 14th. That was a game in November without Stephen Curry. And then 102 in the game that they won back on November the 1st against Sacramento on the Klay Thompson jumper with 0.2 of a second to go. So Miami did the number against the Warriors offense in this one, holding them to a near season low. 8 3-pointers, a season low for the Warriors, and it ended a string of 33 straight games where the Warriors had made at least 10 3-pointers, which was the longest active streak in the NBA coming into this game. So every single game this season, the Warriors had hit at least 10 3-pointers. They'd only hit 10 4 times, so this was the worst 3-point shooting game for the Warriors this season. And dating back toward the end of last year, the Warriors reserves did outscore the Miami reserves in this one. It was closer, though, 51-44, the advantage. And basically what we've seen, this Warriors team can't win if Steph and Klay play poorly, but the other thing they can't do is win without the bench being dominant. They can't just outscore the opponent, but they have to dominate. Tonight they didn't dominate. And Jamal Cain was a big part of that. Nikola Jovic was a big part of that. 18 for Cain, 11 for Jovic. And the Heat end up getting the win. So, yeah, that as far as some of the overall numbers from this one. The Warriors also didn't have a 20-point scorer in a regular season game. This one is via Elias, and this one surprises me because this goes back to the end of the 2021-22 season, so the championship season. The last time the Warriors didn't, it was the second to last game of that season. The last time the Warriors didn't have a 20-point scorer in a regular season game, April 9th of 2022. The Warriors' high man tonight, Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson with 13. Yikes. So you can look at all the players in double figures, but that's not going to cut it if your high is 13. Tough stuff there. Trace Jackson-Davis, I do think, was a bright spot. 3rd career double-double, 3rd in the last 5 games. And so Trace Jackson-Davis continues to be someone that is performing at a high level. 10 points, 11 boards for TJD. All right. That'll do it. Big thanks to the great Raf Corral. Big thanks to Greg Silver. Check out the latest Just Dubs podcast. You can get that on all the podcast platforms. You can also get it KNBR.com. So check that out. A lot of conversation about the things that have been going well since it was recorded before tonight's game. So if you want your dose of Warriors positivity, and there still had been a mostly positive spin on things over the last couple of weeks, you can find that. That's with my guy Greg Silver, who joins me as well. And I'm going to be back, yes. Just don't say anything negative about Kuminga. I'll be back tomorrow with Guy Haberman, 6 a.m. That's right. You heard me correct. About 6.5 hours. Right back here on KNBR, filling in for Murph and Marcus. John Lynch is going to join us, and the great Greg Papa is going to join us as well. Appreciate everybody on the YouTube chat. Appreciate everybody on the phone lines. Tough one for the Dubs. Heat get the better of Golden State, 114-102. We will talk to you tomorrow morning and talk to you on Dubs OT Saturday after the Warriors face the Dallas Mavericks. Keep it locked right here. KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
That's just like making a game winner.
Every single night, every day at practice, he's a rock. He's leading.
Rookie to
want to be a championship.
Because nobody in the Bay Area seemingly will ever admit that Jonathan Kuminga has a bad half or a bad game.